Welcome back to the deep dive. We are here to tackle probably one of the biggest, quietest questions there is.
It's one that really defines so much of modern ambition, isn't it?
It really does. It fuels our economy. It dictates, countless daily choices we all make. And that question is, what is the true relationship between money and happiness?
And we're not just going to, philosophize. We've taken a whole stack of research from behavioral economics, psychology, all the way back to ancient philosophy. And we are diving deep.
We're calling this one the currency of contentment.
Yeah, and this is so much more than just some academic exercise. This is a foundational human tension that I think lives in pretty much all of us.
It has to.
And the sources we've curated for this deep dive, they really force us to get past that simplistic kind of tired old phrase.
Oh, money can't buy happiness. We've all heard it a million times.
Yeah, exactly. Our mission today is to really unpack the complexity behind that. We want to define the thresholds and, help you, the listener, clarify exactly when wealth is a necessary dignity-granting tool.
And when its pursuit becomes something else.
Right. When that relentless, unchecked pursuit transforms into a self-destructive trap. We are really searching for that elusive, deeply personal definition of enough.
So let's start with the stage we all operate on. Because I think most people, whether they admit it or not, are driven by what some of the research calls the silent promise of more.
The silent promise of more. That's a great way to put it.
It's this internal equation that a lot of us use, often completely unconsciously, that just dictates more money equals more happiness. Simple as that.
It's a culturally ingrained narrative, right?
Yeah.
Reinforced everywhere. Media, advertising telling us that, true contentment is just one more raise away.
Or one more investment, one big material purchase.
Exactly. We all visualize that dream scenario. We think, if I could only earn X amount, then I'd finally feel secure.
Yeah, or if I just had that specific house or that perfect retirement fund, that car, that lifestyle, then all this striving would end and I'd finally feel complete.
It's a really instinctive belief that consumption and financial security are somehow the finish line for our emotional well-being.
And yet standing in, direct philosophical opposition to that deep-seated belief is this ancient wisdom. It's universal. You find it in every single human culture.
The old adage.
The old adage that money can't buy happiness. And it's a profound contradiction, isn't it? We spend, maybe 80% of our waking lives pursuing something that history and philosophy tell us is, in the end, kind of meaningless.
That tension is exactly the sweet spot for a deep dive like this. It immediately brings up these central questions that go right to the heart of our values.
Right. Like, is wanting more money just basic common sense survival, a hedge against the chaos of the world?
Or is it evidence of something else, of greed, of, some kind of moral compromise? And you can flip that on its head, too.
How so?
Well, is it noble to try and ignore all these financial pressures? Or is that just, frankly, dangerously naive in a complex modern economy like ours?
Okay, so that is our mission statement for today. We need to cut through all the simple slogans and really explore the highly nuanced reality.
What money can tangibly do for happiness?
And what it definitively cannot do, and maybe most importantly, how our fundamental relationship with this really powerful tool can either support our well-being or fundamentally undermine it.
And before we go another step, I think we have to clarify our language. The whole conversation falls apart immediately if we don't define what we actually mean by these two core concepts.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with money itself. The sources are pretty clear on this. They define money not as an end in itself, but strictly as a tool.
Yes, an instrument.
An instrument that buys you access to specific things that, contribute to your life.
That's such a crucial distinction. Money buys goods, obviously, we all know that. But its true power lies in what it buys beyond the physical objects.
What do you mean?
It buys services. It buys freedom. It can literally buy you time. It buys security. And sometimes, it buys status or even political power.
So when we reduce money to just being this fungible instrument, we take away all its mystique.
Exactly. We can analyze its utility objectively without all the emotional baggage.
Okay, so that's money, a tool. Now for happiness. This one feels a lot messier.
It is, because happiness is really just a blanket term for a whole spectrum of different feelings and conditions.
Right. And the research we looked at outlines, 3 distinct domains that people are usually referring to when they talk about well-being?
That's right. First, there's the most basic one, short-term pleasure. This is that momentary rush of positive emotion, the feeling of joy or excitement.
So buying an ice cream on a hot day.
Exactly. Feels great, but it's transient, doesn't last. The second one is overall life satisfaction. This is much deeper. It's a cognitive assessment.
So it's not how you feel right now, but how you think about your life overall.
Precisely. Are you meeting your goals? Do you feel successful relative to, what you see as your potential? It's a judgment call you make about your life's trajectory.
And then there's the third one, the most profound definition. This touches on deeper flourishing and meaning.
And this isn't just a feeling, it's more like a state of being. It includes having a sense of purpose, a feeling of inner peace, being connected to others, and critically, living a life that actually aligns with your core values.
Okay, so that completely reframes the ultimate question for you, the listener. We aren't just asking if money can buy a momentary thrill, like that ice cream cone.
No, not at all. We are really asking, to what extent can money secure the necessary material and psychological conditions for me to live a good, meaningful, and flourishing life?
And maybe the more crucial part of that question, the inverse, which I think often gets ignored.
Go on.
At what exact point does money start being a net positive and start actively hurting my ability to experience that deep, lasting happiness, that meaning, and that inner peace?
Yes, that shift from just utility to risk assessment is absolutely key to a meaningful deep dive.
Okay, so let's begin with the easiest part of the equation, the non-controversial zone. The place where the answer to can money buy happiness is, for all intents and purposes, yes.
Yes, without any major philosophical gymnastics required.
And that zone is the baseline.
It's the state of lacking enough money for your basic needs and for, basic human dignity. In that context, money doesn't act as a luxury item. It acts as a source of immense life-saving relief.
So if you are struggling below what you're calling the dignity line, money is just unequivocally necessary for well-being.
It is. I mean, think about the depth of financial suffering that some of the sources detail.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, having to put off buying a new TV.
No, we are talking about existential foundational life instability. This includes things like not being able to consistently afford enough nutritious food.
Or living in structurally unsafe or chaotic housing, not having access to essential health care.
Or just being trapped in that constant, paralyzing, high-alert state that's driven by the worry about your imminent survival. It's a constant stress.
And the psychological and even the physiological toll of that level of scarcity is what we really need to focus on here.
What do you mean by physiological?
Well, when an individual is living in what's called a scarcity mindset, their brain is essentially operating in constant crisis mode. The research on this is fascinating.
Okay.
This lack of predictability, this chronic stress that stems from survival fears, it doesn't just make you unhappy. It actually diminishes your cognitive function itself.
It literally lowers your effective IQ.
It does, because all of your available mental resources, all that bandwidth, is being diverted to just scanning for threats and managing the immediate crisis in front of you. There's no room for long-term planning.
Wow. So this is why the sources are so clear. Money, at this level, buys you freedom from that cognitive burden.
It allows the brain to finally switch off that constant threat detection system and move back into a rational planning mode. It frees up your mind.
Exactly. And when you solve that basic financial instability, the tangible benefits, well, they're huge. Dramatically increase safety and stability for you and for your family.
But critically, it also allows for the simple, absolutely essential luxury of rest.
Right. When you don't have to cycle through 2 or 3 physically draining jobs just to keep the lights on, money is literally buying back your physical and mental recovery time.
It's providing a baseline level of comfort that's necessary just to function as a fully present human being.
So the mechanism here isn't happiness as a feeling. It's not joy. It's the removal of a massive negative force.
That's the perfect way to frame it. Money in this context doesn't buy joy directly. It buys freedom from certain specific acute kinds of pain.
And that reduction of misery, the lifting of that chronic heavy weight of financial worry, that's what creates the necessary room, the psychic space for the capacity for happiness to emerge.
Is relief from misery. And it's a non-negotiable prerequisite for well-being. I mean, if you are constantly hungry or freezing, no amount of philosophical advice on gratitude is going to solve that fundamental physical problem.
So we established the ironclad baseline. Money matters intensely existentially when you don't have enough for dignity. It solves the immediate debilitating problem of insecurity.
Right.
Which leads to the critical question, what happens once that foundational problem is definitively solved?
And this brings us squarely into the territory of diminishing returns. This is the crucial research finding that completely dismantles that simple more money equals more happiness equation once your basic needs are met.
The data here is incredibly robust, isn't it? Beyond the point of financial security and dignity, that point where the lights stay on and the bills are predictable, the impact of each subsequent dollar on your emotional well-being just slows down.
Significantly.
It really does. And this is where we should probably talk numbers, because the research has actually attempted to quantify this threshold.
This is a famous Kahneman and Deaton study, right?
That's the most famous early work, yes. Economists Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton suggested a peak number for emotional well-being in the U.S. context was around $75,000 in annual income. But that's been updated, hasn't it?
It has. More recent work by Matthew Killingsworth updated this to potentially $90,000 or even a bit higher, depending heavily on, the local geography and the cost of living.
Yeah.
You can't compare New York City to rural Kansas.
Okay, that's a fascinatingly specific range. Let's pause for a second and explain to the listener what those numbers actually represent. They aren't saying you stop gaining anything at $90,001.
No, that's a common misinterpretation.
Sure.
They are identifying the point where the increase in your income stops translating into a meaningful increase in your daily emotional experience, your moment-to-moment happiness.
Your mood.
Your mood, exactly.
Yeah.
Up to that threshold, the money is incredibly effective because it's buying predictability. It's covering the cost of that unexpected car repair.
The high health insurance deductible that comes out of nowhere.
The occasional need for help. All those unpredictable stressors that can completely derail a lower-income household. Once those stressors are basically covered by savings and a steady income, that $90,000 gives you nearly all the emotional benefit the next $1 million will.
The analogy in the source material is perfect. The difference in happiness you gain between having not enough, say, $30,000 a year and finally having enough, say, $90,000 is immense.
It's life-changing.
But the emotional difference you feel day to day between earning $90,000 and earning $500,000 is often negligible, for deep, lasting contentment at least, even if the numerical difference is massive.
So we need to understand why this ceiling effect happens. Why doesn't $1 million make you 10 times happier than 100,000?
Right. What's going on in our brains?
The sources identify 3 major psychological barriers that prevent wealth from delivering ever-increasing happiness, even after security is achieved. And the first one is just relentless adaptation.
Adaptation. This is the technical term for what's more popularly known as the hedonic treadmill.
Exactly. We are, on a neurological level, wired to quickly normalize novelty. It was an evolutionary advantage.
So you buy the luxury car, you move into the dream house, you get the expensive new gadget, and initially your brain releases a flood of dopamine, a signal that says, hey, this is good, do more of this.
But the human nervous system is incredibly efficient. It very quickly recalibrates its definition of normal.
That thrill, that surge of pleasure, it just dissipates, sometimes within weeks or even just a few months.
Right. What was once novel and exciting quickly becomes a baseline expectation. The brain essentially says, okay, we've achieved this new level. What's the next problem to solve? The bigger house now just means higher property taxes and more rooms you have to clean.
The treadmill forces us to constantly seek more stimulation just to maintain the same level of contentment we had before. You have to keep running just to stay in the same place emotionally.
And this adaptation feeds directly into the second barrier, which is rising expectations.
This is where the social element really kicks in, isn't it?
Absolutely. As your income and wealth increase, so do your standards and desires for what you consider a minimum viable life, or what we start calling a necessary standard.
It's an internal cycle, but it's so heavily influenced by what's going on externally.
Massively. If you move from a peer group where everyone earns around $90,000 a year to one where everyone's earning $300,000, your entire frame of reference shifts dramatically.
Things that felt like a true luxury before.
Like flying first class, or owning a certain type of watch, or going on a certain kind of vacation.
Now that just feels like the minimum required standard just to maintain parity with your new social circle. It feels normal, expected.
And this goalpost, it just constantly moves. And it gets infinitely more expensive and more elaborate as you climb the ladder. This whole phenomenon basically ensures that you never feel like you've arrived.
Because your self-imposed definition of arrival is always just out of reach, fueled by the next status symbol you see someone else has.
And the third major barrier is the time trade-off. This one is just the practical friction of a high-earning life.
Right. The pursuit, or even just the maintenance, of significant wealth often demands more. More work hours, more stress, or substantially more responsibility.
You're managing complex assets, you're dealing with employees, you're handling high-stakes business structures. It's not passive.
This is such a critical point for the listener to internalize. If your income skyrockets, but the associated demands on your time and energy also cause your free schedule to collapse, leaving you chronically exhausted and emotionally depleted.
Your overall happiness will suffer. It has to.
You've traded the ultimate non-renewable resource, your time, your presence with your family, for more money you don't have the time to enjoy.
And the research shows this over and over again. People consistently overestimate how much utility that extra money will bring them, and they completely underestimate the cost in lost leisure time and increased chronic stress.
So for many people in that high earning bracket, happiness doesn't just plateau, it can actually start to decline.
It can. Due to burnout and this nagging feeling that they're constantly serving their wealth rather than their wealth serving them.
So we've established that just accumulating more and more dollars past that point of security doesn't guarantee contentment,
Not at all.
which means the conversation has to fundamentally pivot from accumulation to application.
Yes. The deep question becomes, how do we strategically use the money we have to bypass that treadmill and maximize genuine, long-term well-being?
This is the science of strategic spending.
Exactly. If you can't buy happiness directly, you can absolutely purchase the conditions that make happiness easier to achieve and sustain.
And the first, most foundational strategic application of money is purchasing security and reduced anxiety.
Money, when it's used defensively, is like psychological armor. It lets you build that crucial emergency buffer, 6 months to a year of savings.
So that a sudden, unpredictable financial shock, a job loss, a medical emergency won't completely derail your entire life.
It ensures you have high-quality health insurance, stable housing. It takes away the what-ifs.
And the psychological return on that investment is just immense when you can reduce that underlying chronic hum of financial worry.
The what if the transmission goes out, or what if the roof starts leaking?
You free up vast cognitive resources that were previously just dedicated to anxiety.
Less worry simply means more capacity to be present, to engage with your family, to focus on your work, and just to enjoy the life you're living right now today.
And here's where it gets, for me, really interesting. Because the second strategic use of money is to purchase what might be the most valuable commodity in the 21st century.
Time.
Time and autonomy.
Time is finite, we all know that, and money is a fantastic tool for creating more of it in your life. We see this translated into greater control in two key ways: outsourcing and optionality.
Let's break those down. Outsourcing is
It's paying to have someone else do those tasks that drain your energy and you don't enjoy. House cleaning, complicated meal prep, routine yard work, running errands.
Let's try to put a dollar value on that, just as an example. Say you spend $100 a week on outsourced tasks, and that buys you back 5 hours that you would have spent doing chores you genuinely despise.
Okay.
Those 5 hours can now be spent with your loved ones on a meaningful hobby or simply resting and recharging. The satisfaction you get from that recovered time often far, far outweighs the temporary satisfaction of saving that $100.
But money buys more than just leisure time. It buys autonomy. That's the optionality piece.
It gives you the power of choice.
Specifically, the power to say no. Having a financial buffer, that emergency fund we talked about, it allows you to say no to a toxic job.
Or to a client you don't want to work with. Or an undesirable project.
Or a demanding schedule that you know is compromising your health or your core values.
Yeah.
This increased agency, this feeling that you are the author of your own schedule and your own life.
That's identified as one of the most powerful predictors of long-term well-being, isn't it?
It is, consistently across studies. Control over one's own life is a massive driver of happiness.
Okay, so security and time. What's the third strategic application?
This one shifts the focus. Purchasing experiences and relationships, rather than more material possessions.
We've seen this in countless studies now, the stark difference in lasting happiness you get from buying stuff versus buying experiences.
And the reason why is clear. Material possessions are highly susceptible to that hedonic adaptation we discussed earlier. The new watch, the new couch. They just become background noise very quickly.
But experiences like travel, concerts, shared classes, specialized hobbies, they're different for a few reasons, right?
They are. First, just the anticipation of an experience often generates a significant amount of pre-happiness. You get to look forward to it.
Then the event itself is memorable. It's a unique moment in time.
And third, and this is the most powerful part, experiences turn into stories and memories that we integrate into our identity. They become part of who we are, and they're incredibly resistant to decay. You don't adapt to a cherished memory. You savor it for years.
And if money is used to support shared connection, the happiness actually compounds.
Absolutely. Paying for trips with friends, shared meals, or cultural events with family, it makes it easier to spend that crucial quality time with loved ones, which is a core component of human flourishing.
Shared experiences are inherently social. They create stronger bonds. It's like you're getting double the happiness return on that investment.
Exactly. And that leads to the fourth strategic application, which is often cited as the most robust predictor of contentment, especially at higher income levels.
And that is purchasing generosity and meaning.
The ability to help others, principle in action. The profound benefits of using wealth for what researchers call pro-social spending are highlighted across so much behavioral research.
And this can be anything, right? Giving money to specific causes you care about, helping family members who are in need.
Or even anonymously assisting a stranger. The specific act matters less than the intention behind it. The act of giving increases our sense of connection and fosters a greater sense of meaning and purpose in our own lives.
It just fundamentally flips the script on what money is for.
It does. Instead of focusing on what money can acquire for you, which is an acquisition mindset, this strategy focuses on what money can enable through you, a contribution mindset.
And when we feel like we are contributing something genuinely good to the world, our own emotional baseline rises.
This is that critical transition point we talked about. The inquiry is no longer just, how much money can I accumulate? It becomes, fundamentally, how can I use the money I currently have, whether it's a lot or a little, in a way that maximizes its positive impact on my time, my relationships, and my contribution to the world.
That strategic choice is what defines whether the tool supports your happiness or ends up undermining it.
Right. And it's not always easy, because even when you know these strategies, money comes with some serious, subtle psychological traps.
We've established that money is a powerful servant when you use it strategically. But if it's a powerful servant, the sources are also crystal clear that it is the source of some serious psychological danger.
These traps can often derail even very high earners. And the first, and perhaps the most insidious, is the trap of endless comparison.
Money just facilitates this destructive social comparison. What do researchers call it? The reference group effect.
That's it. When you start comparing your net worth versus theirs, or your home versus their home, your car versus their car, you enter a zero-sum contest that is literally impossible to win.
Why impossible?
Because the goalposts are always set by an ever wealthier, ever more consuming group of peers. There is always someone with more.
And this is particularly potent in today's digital culture, I have to imagine.
Oh, absolutely. We're no longer just comparing ourselves to the neighbors we see on the street. We are now comparing ourselves to the perfectly curated, financially exceptional lives that are broadcast 24/7 on social media.
The sources warn us about this. In a comparison culture, even people earning in the top 5% of the country can feel small, can feel poor, if they're constantly surrounded by images of the top 1%.
You're always looking up the ladder, always focused on the gap between what you have and what someone else appears to possess, instead of appreciating the vast security you might already command.
And the result of that is the immediate destruction of gratitude and contentment.
It has to be. If your entire measure of happiness depends on always being ahead, or at the very least just keeping up with some perceived reference standard, you will never, ever feel secure.
This feeling of chronic inadequacy, there's even a term for it, right? Affluenza.
Yes, a feeling of distress or anxiety that results from the obsessive pursuit of more wealth and more material goods. It's a real psychological phenomenon.
Okay, so that's the first trap comparison. What's the second?
The second trap involves identity and self-worth. This is the profound danger of tying who you are, your inherent value as a human being, to your financial metrics.
So your income or your net worth.
Right. When that happens, money stops functioning merely as a tool, and it becomes an idol that defines your core identity.
And this creates a really volatile emotional state, regardless of your wealth level.
It does. If you have significant wealth and you tie your worth to it, you can develop pride, arrogance, and an intense, paralyzing fear of losing your status.
You become emotionally trapped in superiority. You're constantly having to defend your position against threats, both real and perceived.
And conversely, If you're facing a financial struggle and you tie your identity to that struggle, you risk falling into a deep state of shame and self-hatred.
You feel crushed by inferiority. The lack of money defines who you are, and it creates this incredibly destructive internal narrative.
In both of those scenarios, wealth is no longer just an external resource. It has become the volatile, fluctuating measure of your internal value.
And that is the profound danger. When money defines your sense of self, your emotional security is completely eroded, regardless of what the bank balance says. Your happiness becomes contingent on an external variable that you can never fully control.
Which leads to the third major trap, and this is one that is just endemic in high achievement circles.
Hmm.
It's the trap of sacrificing what truly matters for the sake of accumulating more money well beyond necessity.
When more money becomes the single dominant organizational principle of your life, other vital non-monetary assets they're inevitably traded away.
And the sources consistently list the same sacrificed assets.
Let me guess. Long-term health.
Yes, through lack of sleep, chronic stress, poor diet,
Deep family connections and friendships.
through lack of time, and just as importantly, lack of presence. You might be physically there, but your mind is on work.
Well,
Personal integrity, sometimes through questionable business decisions.
right.
Creativity, rest, a spiritual life. This is the tragic, hidden cost of workaholism, and it's fueled by those rising expectations we discussed earlier.
It's a real irony, isn't it? A life that is monetarily rich but is completely empty of deep love, honesty, and genuine presence can feel profoundly, deeply unhappy.
The source material is full of warnings about this. The quiet hum of the luxury air conditioning system in your enormous house doesn't compensate for the absence of deep human connection or the feeling that you've maintained your integrity.
So this compels a critical, reflective question for the listener, one that you have to ask yourself frequently.
And that question is, what am I trading for this extra money? What vital non-monetary asset am I compromising right now?
And, most critically, when I look back in 5 years, will this trade have been worth the cost to my overall life satisfaction and flourishing?
And that leads to the final, really subtle trap. It's the paradox of security, the fear of loss.
This one seems counterintuitive. You'd rationally expect that once you achieve great financial security, fear would vanish.
But the opposite often occurs. It just creates a new plateau of anxiety.
The more you have, the more you feel you have to lose.
Exactly. Security transforms into a new kind of perpetual anxiety. What if the market crashes? What if I made the wrong investment? What if I get sued and I lose everything? The object of your fear simply changes.
So instead of worrying about how to make rent this month,
The high net worth individual worries about protecting the principal and maintaining the complex infrastructure that supports their wealth.
and this anxiety can lead to real behavioral changes.
It can. Things like clinging tighter and tighter to assets, trusting other people less, retreating into a kind of financial isolation. Money, rather than guaranteeing peace, just redirects and refines the nature of our fear.
We've used research and psychology to dissect all these traps and strategies. Now, the sources invite us to step back and examine this entire relationship through the broader lenses of human thought.
Right. Moving beyond individual accumulation to look at purpose, morality, and consequence.
So where do we start?
Let's start with the perspective that defines money as a neutral but immensely powerful tool.
Okay.
Many classical philosophies, particularly elements of Stoicism and certain modern psychological schools, hold that money is intrinsically neutral. It's neither inherently good nor inherently evil.
So on this view, the moral or emotional impact of money depends entirely on the consciousness and the values of the individual who's wielding it.
Exactly. The danger is not the quantum, the amount of money itself. The danger lies in our attachment to it, in greed, and in the flawed choice to build our core identity on our wealth.
This perspective forces a pretty radical form of self-inquiry then.
It does. You have to ask yourself, does my use of money support a good, just, and compassionate life that reflects my stated values? Or does my pursuit of it actively block me from living those values?
The responsibility for the outcome is placed squarely on the individual's moral compass, not on the financial instrument itself.
Right. Now, you can contrast that neutrality with the second perspective, the powerful warnings against the pursuit of excessive wealth. And these are prevalent across so many spiritual traditions.
From early Christianity and Buddhism to cynicism and even some strains of existentialism.
Right. These traditions cautioned against wealth not necessarily because the tool itself is evil, but because of its powerful tendency to corrupt and distract the mind from what is ultimately important.
And the pitfalls are detailed pretty clearly. Things like arrogance bred by a feeling of superiority.
Emotional detachment from the common struggles of humanity, and the dangerous forgetfulness of deeper, non-monetary values like humility and service.
You think of the ancient Stoic reminders. They really emphasize the fundamental impermanence of all things, including wealth.
They remind us that you cannot take your money with you beyond death. And furthermore, they argue that the endless pursuit of wealth in itself becomes a form of slavery.
How so? A form of slavery.
Because you end up serving the demands of consumption and status, rather than exercising genuine freedom of choice, you're a slave to your own desires.
The important contextual clarification here, I think, is that the goal of these traditions is not to suggest that poverty is automatically holier or somehow superior.
No, not at all. It's a pragmatic warning. It's a warning that wealth requires serious humility, vigilance, and responsibility in its handling, precisely because it introduces so many opportunities for psychological self-deception and moral compromise.
Okay, so we have the neutral tool and the dangerous temptation. What's the third lens?
The third is the perspective of justice and structural distribution. Philosophers who are focused on societal fairness think modern utilitarianism or theories of economic equity. They shift the entire scope of the conversation.
Away from the individual and onto the collective structure of society.
It's a fundamental change in scale. We stop asking, can money buy my maximum individual happiness? And we start asking, how does the distribution of money in our society affect everyone's chances for a decent life and basic human flourishing?
The question moves from private fulfillment to public good.
And this introduces a really powerful ethical implication. We established back in Section 1 that money below that dignity line is absolutely crucial for freedom from suffering.
Right.
Therefore, if extreme wealth coexists in a society where a significant portion of the population lacks the most basic needs, food security, stable shelter, health care, the marginal happiness gain of the super rich is often considered ethically outweighed by the acute and preventable suffering of the very poor.
That structural perspective really challenges the whole notion of maximum individual accumulation.
It does. It suggests that the larger societal and ethical goal should be to establish a world where everyone has enough money to live with dignity and security.
A principle often referred to as distributive justice.
Yes, rather than simply maximizing private financial fortunes at the expense of others' foundational needs.
So this synthesis really forces the listener to confront the ethical dimension of their own financial decisions and the broader structural issues that determine who even has access to that foundational enough.
It acknowledges that while money is a tool for individual freedom, its distribution is a massive social and ethical problem.
Okay, let's bring all of these threads together. Let's distill the key findings into a practical, actionable summary.
For you, the learner, we can organize everything we've covered into 3 clear zones when it comes to money and happiness.
Okay, let's hear them. First, the zone below enough. We can call this the scarcity zone.
In this zone, money is crucial. It solves immediate existential problems. It buys relief from fear, hunger, and insecurity.
The goal of earning more money here isn't greedy. It's essential for human dignity, for cognitive function, and for survival.
Then there's the second and most critical zone, around enough, the strategic zone.
This is that threshold of security we talked about, that estimated $75,000 to $90,000 range in many contexts.
And once that basic security is met, the use of the money matters exponentially more than the amount you keep accumulating.
So in this phase, happiness is maximized by prioritizing strategic spending on time, relationships, experiences, contribution, and generosity.
Which effectively allows you to bypass that hedonic treadmill.
And third, the zone beyond enough. This is the danger zone.
This is where those psychological dangers we outlined grow exponentially. Without extreme caution, intentionality, and a lot of philosophical discipline, the traps of comparison, fear of loss, greed, and workaholism become destructive forces.
And they quietly erode your well-being, often leading to a state of profound unhappiness amidst immense material abundance.
And this architecture, these 3 zones, they lead us directly to the key philosophical distinction that runs through all of the sources we looked at.
Which is the difference between having money versus being ruled by money.
Yes. Money can and should serve your deepest values, your love, your creativity, your desire for justice, your commitment to your family,
But if you are not vigilant, it can so quickly become your master.
demanding endless amounts of your time, forcing you to sacrifice your relationships, and ultimately eroding your emotional loyalty to what you claim you truly value.
So after this whole deep dive, we can come back and reiterate a final, complex, and nuanced answer to that original question. Can money buy happiness?
And the answer is multi-layered.
Yes. Money can buy relief from nearly all forms of material misery, and when it's used properly, it can powerfully support happiness by providing essential security, autonomy over your time, rich experiences, and the profound benefits of being generous.
But the crucial caveat remains absolute. Money cannot guarantee deep holistic happiness if your life is empty of the non-monetary essentials.
Genuine love, a sense of meaning, personal integrity, and presence.
And we learn that actively chasing money as the primary singular goal, especially past that security point, can paradoxically reduce your happiness.
By intensifying all those traps of comparison, driving chronic anxiety, and forcing you to sacrifice those non-monetary assets that truly define a good life.
Therefore, the sources all suggest that the most important question for us to ask ourselves is no longer that vague and confusing, can money buy happiness?
There's a wiser version of the
A
question,
much wiser version for every individual every time they make a financial decision.
and it's this. How much money is enough for a decent, secure, and dignified life in my specific context? And after that personal threshold is reached, how can I use the resources I possess in a way that serves my highest values? Love, justice, creativity, and real well-being for myself and for others without becoming enslaved by the tool itself.
That's the question.
It is clear from our deep dive that money is an incredible engine. It's an engine of comfort, of options, of security, and of time. It provides unmatched leverage in modern life.
And below that baseline of dignity, it is a moral necessity.
But our analysis concludes that there are fundamental defining elements of the human experience that money simply cannot touch. It cannot purchase them.
Things like a good character, authentic reciprocal love, deep inner peace, or a genuine sense of meaning.
These non-monetary elements, they have to be actively chosen, they have to be cultivated, and they have to be fiercely protected.
Especially against the constant, overwhelming cultural pressure to always earn more, consume more, and sacrifice more of your attention and energy in the pursuit of the next dollar.
Money is a powerful servant, but history is just littered with examples of it becoming a terrible, terrible master.
It can support happiness, but it cannot, under any circumstances, be happiness itself.
So our challenge to you this week is to actively and deliberately define your personal boundary for enough.
Don't just think about it in the abstract. Quantify what security looks like for you, specifically in terms of savings and income. Once you know that number, then identify the non-monetary asset, your health, your time with family, your creative hobby that you know you are currently sacrificing, and commit today to protecting it. Figure that out, and you will have found the truest currency of contentment.